Hey, what's up everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is analyzing Kawhi Leonard's big decision this summer with the Clippers. So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, make sure you go ahead and check out Dreamerspro Max, an online sports community, place where you can go and start basketball discussions, chat live during games, so many other cool things. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that out. We have that linked in the description below. And also make sure you go ahead and click the join button to join the channel to receive loyalty badges from us. So let me get into this topic here. So this is going to be a big summer here for a lot of teams, but especially the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, because here we go again. I feel like we just went through this just like a year ago, but it was just 2 years ago, as being a Kawhi Leonard fan, where I had to experience this, right? It was the Kawhi Leonard sweepstakes. That point, he was fresh off of an NBA championship and a Finals MVP. He had just finished winning that title for the Toronto Raptors, an organization that had never won an NBA title. And you know, he was a free agent, and he was the new girl on the block, right? Everybody wanted to land Kawhi Leonard. Ultimately, though, he did decide to go sign with the Los Angeles Clippers. And not only did he go sign to the Los Angeles Clippers, which shocked some people because they thought that he would either go back to the Toronto Raptors or sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. He was then also able to get Paul George to break his contract with the Oklahoma City Thunder and then come sign with him as well. So that was also a big shocker and a bombshell. So he ended up signing with the Clippers, and he's played 2 years with them. The first season, we all remember what happened in the playoffs when they dropped a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets in round 2 and ultimately lost that lead in Game 7. And you remember he had a forgettable Game 7 alongside his co-star Paul George, and the Clippers were ridiculed all summer long just for good reason. And then, of course, this season when they vowed to come back, not many people were picking them given the fact that they flamed out in the Orlando bubble last season. And then this year, you know, they played their hearts out. They had a very good seed in the Western Conference. I think they finished with the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Then they got into the playoffs, had a very tough round 1, but Kawhi Leonard proved that, you know, he was worth the headache, basically carried that team to the second round and then helped the team tie up the series after going down 0-2 to the Utah Jazz, where he ultimately then got injured in that Game 4 where we would never see him again. And then since he went down, you know, Paul George had to kind of pick up the slack. And I think PG proved that ultimately he was a reliable number 2 option. When he was put in the position as a number 1 option, there were some times he would deliver and other times he wouldn't. But I think it proved that, listen, Paul George is at his best when he plays alongside another great player and a player that's possibly a little bit better than him and then Kawhi Leonard. That's when you're going to see the most from him, because a lot of people are not going to be, all the pressure won't be on Paul George. It'll be on the number 1 option. And I think Paul George proved that he could be a reliable number 2 option. And in certain games, he could be a number 1 option for a championship team. We also got to see that Ty Lue proved that certainly he's one of the best coaches in the NBA. And I think the best coach at making adjustments, at least these playoffs. I think that it also proved that the Clippers made the right decision to move on from Doc Rivers. And ultimately, there was a piece of lint flying around. Move on from Doc Rivers and ultimately sign with Ty Lue. So Lawrence Frank and Steve Ballmer and these guys ultimately did make the right decision by signing, signing Ty Lue as the head coach for this team. Now, however, you know, Kawhi Leonard does have to make a big move. He has to make a big decision now, right? Because yes, the Clippers lost, given the fact that they were missing 3 starters in that second round. We understand it, but it's now time for him to make a decision on whether or not he's going to return to the team. And I think there are a lot of things to take into consideration. Now, we recently did a video addressing the rumors that he could possibly go sign with the Miami Heat and the Dallas Mavericks. We spoke about the Miami Heat primarily due to the fact that they do have cap space. Given the fact that they do have cap space, that does put them in play if we're going to talk from a conversational standpoint. But I think if we look at both rosters, the Clippers roster and the Miami Heat roster, I think the Clippers have the superior roster. And I don't think that Miami Heat roster, even if they do add Kawhi Leonard, I don't think it'll be enough for them to get past the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference. I think the Clippers gives him the best chance to get to the finals. If we're just looking at rosters. We also spoke about the Dallas Mavericks. I said, listen, the Dallas Mavericks are in complete disarray. as an organization. Their head coach, Rick Carlisle, who's a seasoned coach, he stepped down. He just decided, listen, I've had enough. He went back to the Indiana Pacers to go coach with, to go coach that team where he had a history with in the past. So Rick Carlisle left. They ended up hiring Jason Kidd, who is not a proven head coach in the NBA. He is not a championship coach. Rick Carlisle is a championship coach. If you guys remember, he was the head coach when the Dallas Mavericks captured their championship in 2011 against the Miami Heat. So they hired a new coach in Jason Kidd. Then you have rumblings of Kristaps Porzingis being unhappy in Dallas, and he doesn't like playing alongside Luka Doncic. And Luka Doncic is a fantastic player, but he's a very ball-dominant player that tends to dominate the ball and shoot a lot, and I just don't see how him and Kawhi Leonard's game will mesh. He's a one-way player, meaning he's a great offensive player. Defensively, he gives you nothing, and I think if you juxtapose him to Paul George, overall, people may say Luka is the better player, but I think Paul George, what he gives you on offense, especially when he gets hot, but he also gives you that defense consistently. And obviously he's not the playmaker that Luka Doncic is. And if you look at the Dallas Mavericks roster, again, I think the Clippers have the superior roster because, yes, the Dallas Mavericks have a very talented team as far as an offensive team that's very talented, but they don't play defense, and I don't see how Kawhi Leonard will mesh with that. Now, the Clippers also have made some big plans, right? They're securing a new arena. I think is in Inglewood, an arena that's, I think, reportedly to cost him about $1.8 billion. But as you know, deep pockets Ballmer, that ain't nothing to him but a bunch of chips on the table. Somebody that's worth over $65 billion. So I don't think that's going to break the bank for him. They've also committed to Paul George long term, signing him to a $200 million contract, max contract moving forward. So they've made a commitment to him. And I think the Clippers have the right balance of veterans and young players. If you look at young players like Terrence Mann, if it's Zubac, these are young guys who got a lot of valuable minutes this year in the playoffs, who are going to come back better next season and more confident. And then they have the right blend of older players like Nicholas Batum, Marcus Morris Sr., and players like that. Paul George. These guys are all veterans. So I think Kawhi Leonard is the final piece for that championship. I don't to that team. I can't envision Kawhi Leonard looking at what the team accomplished without him. Basically, 2 wins away from getting to the NBA Finals. For him to look at all of that and say, you know what, I want to leave. And the options that people are given, like the Dallas Mavericks, why would Kawhi want to leave a team that he leave and go to a team that he beat? For what reason? Unless you heard him having some type of internal issues with some of the players or the coaches. We haven't heard any of that. In fact, I've heard this is one of the most tight-knit groups in the entire NBA. So him going to Dallas doesn't make any sense. Him going to Miami, possibly, but I don't see him leaving this Clippers team. If we're looking at the roster and given the fact that Kawhi Leonard seems to be transfixed on winning championships, I don't see him leaving this team to go sign with the Miami Heat's team when I think this team is the deepest team in the NBA. However, it's still his decision to make, and we don't know what decision he's going to make, right? We don't know exactly the decision Kawhi Leonard is going to make, and I think we have to wait and see. But ultimately, I do think he does re-sign with the Clippers. Now, he has said he's going to reject his player option for $36 million and become a restricted free agent, which means that he's probably looking to sign a long-term deal. If he was looking to go, if he were just looking to get a 1-year deal, he would just pick up the option and then come back and renegotiate next year. So he just turned 30 years old. I think he's gonna be looking for a long-term deal, and I think ultimately he's going to re-sign with the Clippers, and that's what I think is probably going to happen. But it's going to be a big decision, regardless of what team he decides to sign with. So what I want to know from you guys is quite simple. Where do you think Kawhi Leonard goes? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode.